What are the correct policy choices in our post-Woo society? This is 5 Way to Show About Worcester.
Take 2.
I'm Mike Benedetti. It's February the 8th, 2019. This is Brendan Melican. Hi, Brendan.
What's shaking, brother? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're not on the radio or cable TV this week. We're just here on the internet, on the podcast vibes, on the podcast feeds.
It only took us a full month and a half to get a show together. Well done.
A lot of stuff has happened in the last month and a half. I feel like there's lots of interesting things to say about
a single detail.
Well, there's like economic development. We could talk about crime. We could talk about clear bag recycling. Probably the most important thing to talk about this week is that on February the 3rd, Conan O'Brien was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he told a story. He said, I found out the reason I'm 100% Irish is my people. We came to Boston around the time of the Civil War.
Yep.
We all just moved into a very small area, a corner of Worcester, Massachusetts.
Sure.
And then an audience member interrupted with a single, solitary woo.
Which is what you do when you hear your hometown or a town you fancy mentioned live. You woo.
There you go. And Conan responded, don't woo Worcester. No one woos Worcester.
Worcester is unwooable.
Worcester's unwooable. I think he's 100% correct about this. Yeah. I think he's 100% correct on several levels. He may be 200 or 300% correct on this.
So I think what you just said is the important part. There are multiple levels here, right?
Okay. Go for it. Outline.
I think we have to agree, right? And I hope I'm not doing like a man behind the curtain thing here. Nobody is actually upset that Conan O'Brien said that the city of Worcester is unwooable, right?
Yes.
But see, I also feel as though in an age of social media where not everybody is necessarily kind of has a sense of humor and gets what's going on, like there are people who actually think people are actually upset about this.
Context is frequently missing, and so if you see people pretending to be upset, you may not know they're only pretending.
But you should, like, unless you're the kind of person who, when you watch soap operas and you get like really angry because somebody cheated on somebody else, that you write them a letter as their character saying, how dare you treat Sophia that way? She's been so good to you for 18 seasons. Like, we do know that there are people in reality that can't separate like reality from fiction and enjoy the sort of like the navigating the program between those two. Those people do exist.
But the complexity here is that the person on the internet seeing the other person complaining about this may think they may be that person who can't separate reality, or they may think the other person is the person who can't separate reality. And in either case, they may be taking what they're saying seriously, for good or for bad reasons.
I think just further proof that Elon Musk is right and we are living in a simulation.
Well, why do you think Conan is correct to say that the city's unmovable?
I didn't say you said that.
Oh, I mean, I can tell you why.
Go ahead, tell me.
I mean, I want to say this to somebody who owns an ice cream shop named Wooberry, like with apologies. You know, Woo is a terrible nickname for Worcester. It's a nickname that's been used a lot in the last 10 years.
Sure.
It's a terrible nickname.
Sure.
If you want to use it as a nickname, go for it. If of all the things that are going to bother me that week, it was the thing that bothered me the least is if somebody calls Worcester the Woo or whatever. But we're leaving a lot of great nicknames on the table when we do that. You know, Woo just sounds like, I don't know, man. It just sounds like something a toddler would say. If your toddler calls it Woo, cool.
Do we have room for one caveat?
What's the caveat?
Joe versus the Volcano remains to this day the high watermark for American cinema.
Sure.
The Big Woo, the volcano in Joe versus the Volcano, the very namesake of the movie Joe versus the Volcano, is an important feature of the greatest achievement in American cinematic history. As someone who's always been a big fan of Joe versus the Volcano, I've been calling Worcester the Big Woo more as a reference to Joe versus the Volcano since the early 90s.
Right. Or you could call it, there's a Wu-Tang Clan thing.
Totally, yeah.
Like there's a lot, and there's whatever. Like I said, it's not a big deal. I'm just saying I feel like people are leaving a lot of great nicknames on the table. Wormtown is a spectacular nickname because it's very self-deprecating, which I feel like is very much in the spirit of being in Worcester. It also is, in some ways, kind of weirdly aggressive and prideful of the city of Worcester, which is also feels like very true to the spirit of Worcester. It also sounds cool, and I have not heard of a lot of other places call themselves Wormtown. And this is why Wormtown's been adopted by a lot of businesses. Also, Wartown, I feel like, is also a name which is maybe an okay enough name. I feel like it gets into this weird middle ground of the false belief that Worcester means war castle. And so I sort of shy away from Wartown because I don't want to cause any etymological confusion.
Sure.
But I think that's fine too. Woo seems like the weakest of all of our options for Worcester. So I feel like Conan saying Worcester's unwooable, don't woo Worcester. I can support that. Not as a thing that I'm white hot passionate about.
No,
sure.
I'm happy to go in on team Worcester Worcester is a post-woo society. I'm happy with that. I also think it's important though too, and that's what's kind of cool about this. What cats are doing. And I think a lot of this started with local comedian Sean Connolly, was quickly picked up by Che Anderson down at City Hall, who, it seems under like the official city banner put together like a video that was like directed at Conan O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
That has been picked up by a lot of Boston media, not just Worcester media. Boston.com wrote a really nice piece about it and whatnot, just highlighting the efforts. I also think that's one of those funny things that only cranky people who've never left Worcester, who like think that Auburn is like an exotic destination to go to, get really, really incensed about. The idea that you can take something silly and trivial and turn it into a really great marketing machine.
Yeah.
And that's what folks are actually doing really, really well. Like,
Yes.
even though it's probably a long shot, doesn't matter and whatever, if a JetBlue aircraft from like New York actually lands up at Worcester Airport and Conan O'Brien gets off with a little rubber dog puppet, like that's actually going to be a kind of a cool thing in terms of helping promote and market the city of Worcester, which is ultimately all anyone's trying to accomplish.
Yes, and let me say that even though I would say that people should strongly consider using other nicknames for the city when they have that option.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to criticize Sean and Che for doing this thing any more than I would say, Roddy Piper and Jimmy Superfly Snuka's misunderstanding. It's just a simple misunderstanding. We could really bring them together. They shouldn't be having that feud. Like, of course they should be having feuds over stupid stuff. It's professional wrestling.
It's why we're here. So we all showed up.
These guys should be having this sort of crazy feud with Conan O'Brien. And I was just as like to say that, again, with a sense of pride, I hope that we are contributing to this pro wrestling style feud by taking Conan's side on this one.
In a meaningful way, yeah, no, and it's ultimately, I guess, what it all comes down to is that, as we've discussed previously on the show, conflict actually is a great way to catch people's attention. Professional wrestling realized that some 70 years ago, and it's nice to see the city of Worcester catching on to that as well.
Let me ask you this, as somebody who is a Worcester resident or a Worcester native, unlike myself.
I'm turning more towards you. I
Do you
get a sore neck from this show.
Do you? Obviously you're supposed to say woo when your city isn't even on a talk show, but do you feel that like, which one? Do you feel like it's in the spirit of Worcester to say woo, or to not say woo?
No, look. So there's a couple. The first thing when I watched that video the first time around, which was pretty much right when the Colbert Show put it up on air, because that's what I do is I watch clips. I don't have cable. The first thing I thought was, my grandfather was right. No matter where you go in the world, you're going to run into somebody from Worcester. Like, that's the stuff that's actually important, I think, for locals from anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're from Albuquerque or you're from Worcester, right? Like, you go somewhere and unexpectedly somebody mentions your hometown, you get excited. You might go woo. Some people might yell, I don't know, like profanities, whatever. Somebody might throw a beer at the stage. There's all sorts of different ways to dealing with that. That's a little bit of excitement. I think that's kind of healthy. I think actually, if you're the kind of person that just walks blankly through life without any sort of emotion or excitement about things that like you recognize, that there might be something wrong like that.
Well, I'm not thinking that that you would not say woo as a sense of blank emotion. I would think that you wouldn't say woo in the sense of like what. You think that I'm a kind of chump who's going to just like scream because my city's named on some stupid TV show? No, I don't care. Worcester's whatever, dude. I love Worcester. I'll fight you if you say you don't. But other than fighting you, I'm not going to cheerlead for it.
Maybe that would have been the more responsible reaction then for that crowd member to just rush the stage and actually just deck Conan O'Brien.
That maybe they should say Worcester. They should maybe say woo because out of a sense of talk show decorum, but whenever Conan goes on the offensive against Worcester, that's when they should charge the stage. And presumably there's got to be half a dozen people there from Worcester.
There's not only one person there. There was
the other people are doing, they're taking that second option of just
Worcester
not
people
saying
roll hard. Never fewer than 6 in foreign territory. That's a given. And probably that would have been the great reaction though. The woo happened. Conan then dismissive of the woo. Worcester is unwooable. And if we're going to assume that it sounded like it was a female voice wooing, so let's picture for ourselves, for entertainment purposes, a female of average stature. That would have been the perfect move, to see that person just come flying out of the stage, out of the stand, rush the stage, and just throw like a flying, haymaker at a 6'5" Conan O'Brien and take him out, just lay him out, and then security's trying to figure out what's going on. That would have been the Worcester move. Worcester people would have looked at that and said, "That's about right," and just gone back to watching a monologue.
I mean, they highly edit these talk shows too.
I'm aware. Unlike this show, which is not only not produced, it's not edited.
I think we should just assume that is actually what happened, and that they were like, we can't have this crazy thing of Conan O'Brien. Somebody trying to attack Conan O'Brien on television. This is not what we do. We stop the cameras. We cut that chunk out, and then Conan continues with the anecdote. We get the audience back in the mood.
So
probably it happened. That's all I'm saying.
It probably did happen, and it opens up the door to another important facet of the story that has clearly gone uncovered until just this very moment in time. Has anyone made any effort to find out who this person that wooed was? Like, this is the hero we need, presumably, right? Like, not only do we now know that she probably beat the crap out of Conan O'Brien on near live television,
but she stood up.
But she's out there somewhere, right? Like, I mean, we're giving no offense to Dale LePage, but maybe we were a little quick to pull the trigger on this year's Harvey Ball Award if we're giving it to Dale. Maybe this person is the person who should be getting the Harvey Ball Award for 2019.
Again, I'm just talking in terms of probabilities and in terms of deductive reasoning. It probably was Dale LePage.
You think it was Dale LePage?
We could ask him. Anyway, there's a lot of levels to this. Brent crude oil is $62 a barrel, up 1% on the week and down 5% on the year. Bitcoin is $3,400, down 1% on the week and 59% on the year. The producer price index for construction, sand, gravel, and crushed stone for December was 338.3, up 4% on the year.
Tough year for Bitcoin.
A lot of things are going down this week in Worcester. A lot of things are happening in Worcester this week.
Not just Bitcoin.
That seemed like they were never going to happen. Like, maybe the city's going to switch up its whole recycling game.
Exciting stuff.
One of the parking garages downtown is actively being dismantled.
Okay.
The one off of Pleasant Street. And the WRA is talking that it for real wants to try to eminent domain the Midtown Mall.
Yeah. And
the Worcester Redevelopment Authority has always, probably as long as it has existed, whatever existed before it probably also said the same thing. Oh yeah, for reals, we're going to eminent domain this building.
Yeah.
But now they're like, no, for reals, we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Overrated, underrated, the Midtown Mall.
Underrated, but based on what it should be. Like, the Midtown Mall in and of itself is an underrated facility. It's a gorgeous facility, but not in its current condition. In its current condition, it's an embarrassment.
Overrated, underrated, the new comedy club downtown. Woo ha ha.
The comedy club.
Woo ha ha. I emphasize.
Didn't see that one coming. Speaking strictly of the club itself, it underrated. It's pretty great. I was down there last weekend. Had a good time.
Overrated, underrated, clear bag recycling.
Overrated.
No.
Is there a rate? No, can you have a rating on that? Because it's like, I don't know. Is anyone
What's
actually
the conventional? What do you think? The first question is, what do you think the conventional wisdom is on clear bag recycling?
I guess that's the point. Like, I'm saying, it's overrated because I don't know. Is anyone actually? As far as I can tell, in based strictly on on photographic evidence that ran in Worcester Magazine, the Telegram Online, and whatnot, it could be the case that the city manager and Paul Moosey are the only people in the city of Worcester who are actually excited about this. But it's being presented as though the entire city's amped up about it.
I was at a neighborhood meeting yesterday where somebody brought this up and was like, "What the hell is this clear bag recycling supposed to be? Can't we just use some kind of bins?" And there was a guy from the city, oh man, I forget what department, code department or something, who just gave a very impassioned, detailed defense of clear bag recycling. So that's at least 3 people in the city of Worcester who are
There's 2 people excited and one guy is terrified to lose his job.
I am super excited about clear bag recycling. I think it's underrated. Yeah. I think it's underrated because when I look at my own life, I know that my own life will be a lot better if we have clear bag recycling.
Okay.
Like, my management of our household recycling situation will be a lot easier with clear bags than with these bins.
How so?
Number of reasons. We can just start off with what's going on in our garage, which is that we've got all of these containers in our garage. We've got 3 bins and 2 trash cans for like our peak recycling weeks,
Mhm.
which are mostly empty most of the week because nobody's running stuff out on the garage on a regular basis. So there's a big chunk of the garage taken up by empty containers.
Right.
Because they don't stack nicely, because they're just a total hodgepodge of containers that we have out there.
Sure.
Because they're always being destroyed and hit by cars and stuff based on where we are. So they don't last very long.
What are the cars doing on your sidewalk, Mike?
The containers slide into the street. They get blown into the street by the wind, and the car hits them.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. Especially on a cold winter's day, that's a big that starts the shattering process right there. So I'm saying just to start, and we can just trace it all the way back. That's just like at the curb how it makes at the end point how it makes my life better. Every other step of the way to management, the recycling, it makes it better. I think we should point out that in terms of ecological impact, environmental impact, recycling is not the problem of our solid waste stream is a huge problem.
Right.
Recycling is not really solving that problem.
Recycling is solving the solid waste problem literally in the same way as if, like, when you folks wanted to take your recycling out, you looked at the distance from the garage that you just described to the street. So, man, that's really far. And then you looked at the fence in the backyard, like to where the church property is, and said, that ain't so far, and just threw everything over that fence. I mean, that's essentially summing up what our entire recycling efforts in the United States are. We've just suddenly realized that China no longer wants to be importing all
so
of
now
our,
we're just like, I guess,
recycling, so we're all panicking.
I mean, I don't want to be that. Maybe I don't want to be as negative as you, but I want to be on
Is
the
that
same.
negative, though? That's pretty realistic.
Or as skeptical
years,
as you. I mean,
I
the real solution is that we as a household have to say, we got to have less recycling containers out there. We got to have less trash containers out there. We got to have less recycling containers out there. Because the recycling container, putting stuff in the recycling is better than putting it in the trash. But not that much better than putting it in the trash overall.
Right.
So, like, anything out being on the curb at all is a problem. And that's what we have to stop the problem. What I'm saying is, if it's going to get out there, better it be in a clear bag than in a bin. And the fact that people in the city a lot of people are against the clear bags.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are about the clear bags. Some people love the clear bags. When I look at my own life and how it will transform my own life for the better to have the clear bags, I gotta think there's a lot of people who just aren't thinking that deeply about their own life and how recycling impacts it. Fine, don't spend that time thinking about your life and recycling. That's kind of a waste of your time. But if you did, and once you have those clear bags in your hand, you're just going to be like, hallelujah. You're going to hear spontaneous hallelujahs all over the city. Every recycling night in every district of the city, as people are like, this is so much better than putting it in these bins.
Yeah.
Where it blows. People are going to wake up recycling morning and be like, where's the trash?
But the bins that people
I'm
are
used to
talking
that
about,
trash. I kind of miss that carpeting of trash that's in my neighborhood from all the stuff being blown out of the bins by the wind.
I was reading last week that NASA has identified what appears to be a plastic bag flying in orbit around the planet that, like,
really
picked it up on a telescope. I mean, while you were talking,
it was probably blown out of a city of Worcester recycling bin.
Somewhere on West Street, yeah. I think it's important to point out that I think a lot of the bins that people are talking about are not more of the bins that we already have, but are like the large bins that, like the 55, 65 gallon bins that have lids that most civilized areas of the country have moved to. You're not happy with that either.
I grew up in a place where we did that for our recycling, and it was fine. We also had one for our trash.
Yeah.
I also lived in a place where we had clear bag recycling, which was New York City, which in many ways was obviously a more intense place than West Virginia or Oklahoma. But the recycling situation was way nicer with the clear bags. I don't know. We've been talking about this for a long time, Brennan. We should keep some stuff for next week's show. Next week's show, we're going to be back in the radio studio, back with a guest.
All right.
This is just us getting back on the horse.
It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. And we'll see how this whole woo situation goes. If anybody else woos the city this week, we'll talk about it next week. Nice to see you guys too. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week, Worcester. All right. Some of the show we had 5 people.